Welcome to Quandel. We are glad to have you join our team. Quandel was founded in 1882 and since then has established itself as a leader in commercial construction. We have grown to become a family of 5 specialized companies within a Quandel enterprise structure: Quandel Construction Group, J. Schaefer Construction, Pyramid Construction Services, Performance Construction Company, and Quandel Energy Solutions. One of our keys to success and growth is our emphasis on safety. Our number one goal is to complete our work without any injuries or accidents. To accomplish this goal, we need everyone to follow safety rules and work safely. The following video reviews the safety requirements for our job sites and highlights some of the specific safety challenges that we need to overcome in construction today. Remember, everyone must work together to accomplish our safety goal. If you see a hazard, correct it. If you cannot correct it, report it immediately to your supervisor. If you see someone working unsafe, stop them. You have the obligation to stop work if you feel it is unsafe, and you should work with our management team to develop a safe solution to the problem. Once again, welcome, and remember, safety first, last, and always.
On every project, our safety goals are clear. We aim to have 0 accidents, 0 unplanned events, and 0 OSHA citations. This orientation will review the most important safety guidelines and practices so that our job sites remain a safe place to work for our colleagues, our clients, and the community. Defensive driving applies to the job site too, no matter if that is a construction site, a warehouse parking lot, a residential area, or an isolated field site. There are several hazards to remain aware of. Human errors such as reckless driving, distracted driving, which includes texting and smartphone usage, fatigue, and aggressive driving are very dangerous. Keeping vehicles in good operating condition can also reduce the risk of accidents. There is 0 tolerance for driving under the influence. Stay alert while driving and pay attention to hazards. Scan the road ahead. In an urban setting, scan 1 block forward. In rural settings, scan for the next curve, hill, or overpass. And while driving on expressways, always allow yourself a way out. OSHA is a regulatory agency whose mission is to assure safe and healthy working conditions by setting and enforcing standards. They provide training, outreach, education, and assistance. OSHA covers all 50 states, including the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and all U.S. territories. 26 states have their own OSHA programs. OSHA does not cover the self-employed, farms with only family members employed, and federal, state, and local governments. In order to fulfill their mission, OSHA programs include standards, record keeping, enforcement, inspections, training, and seminars. Through inspections, OSHA can issue citations when standards are not being met. The multiple employer worksite policy allows OSHA to cite multiple employers at a single worksite if a hazardous condition violates safety standards, even if each employer didn't directly create the hazard or their own employees are exposed to it. This list includes the 5 employer types that could all be issued citations for the same violation. OSHA citations and penalties fall into 6 different classifications. De minimis are smaller infractions and usually carry no fine or penalty. An other than serious violation refers to violations that involve a less severe injury than a serious violation, which covers loss of limb, hospitalization, or loss of life. Repeated violations involve a prior violation reoccurring anytime within 5 years of the first violation. A willful violation can be issued after several repeat violations or in instances of a supervisor directing an employee to ignore a safety protocol. Failure to abate is rare, but it is used when there are excessive repeat violations that have not been abated. These are the top 10 OSHA citations in 2021. Number 1 is fall protection general requirements. Number 2, hazard communication. Number 3, scaffolding violations. Number 4, lockout tagout. Number 5, respiratory protection. Number 6, ladders. Number 7, powered industrial trucks. Number 8, fall protection training requirements. Number 9, machine guarding. And number 10, eye and face protection. From OSHA's inception in the 1970s to now, the number of workplace fatalities has dropped by 33%. In 2022, 4,764 workplace fatalities occurred, and of those, 1,008 were construction workers. 4 construction workers die each day in the United States. Construction is a very dangerous industry, and this is why safety is such an important part of our company's mission.
There are 4 areas that cause the most fatalities for construction workers, and they are referred to as the Fatal 4. The first is falls. Over 36% of fatalities are caused by falls. Struck by objects, electrocutions, and caught-betweens are the other 3. If these 4 were eliminated through training and awareness, 10 lives per week could be saved. Falls on a construction site account for over 36% of fatalities. Knowing how far you can fall within a matter of seconds shows you that catching yourself is generally not an option. Knowing the proper use and the limits of your PFAS, or personal fall arrest system, is the best way to remain safe while working with heights. Keeping the swing, the 45-degree vertical angle, the 30-degree max, and the rescue plan in mind are important to safely use PFAS. Your PFAS must be tied off to an anchorage point that can hold 5,000 pounds of force. A cable or wooden guardrail system is not adequate as a tie-off point. Make sure you properly store and inspect your fall protection before use, and never use 2 fall arrest systems in combination with each other unless they were designed to be used that way. Another fall hazard is holes. Any hole larger than 2 inches by 2 inches should be covered and labeled clearly. When working with ladders, there are things to keep in mind to work safely. Make sure you maintain 3 points of contact with the ladder. Come down the ladder facing the ladder. Only use a ladder on a stable, sturdy surface. Know the weight limit and do not exceed it. Inspect the ladder and make sure it is the right size ladder for the job. Don't stand on the top 2 rungs. Know the belt buckle rule and keep your buckle within the side rails of the ladder. Keep the area around your ladder clean and make sure the ladder is securely spread open. Don't use a step ladder as an extension ladder. Make the ladder your last choice and opt for scissor lifts and scaffolding first. Extension ladders have many of the same guidelines as step ladders. In addition, keep the 4-to-1 rule in mind, which states that the ladder should be 1 foot away from the wall for every 4 feet the ladder rises. Make sure to keep 3 feet of hangover from the landing/stepping surface. Tie the extension ladder off at the top and the bottom. Again, scissor lifts, aerial lifts, and scaffolding should be considered before any ladder. Knowing the specifications of different kinds of ladders is important when you do have to use one. Knowing which steps are off limits, where the highest standing level is, and which rungs are considered safe. Knowing this familiar with the duty rating, general type of use, and the load each of the 5 ladder types can carry will aid in making your ladder choice. When using scaffolding, the scaffolding must be inspected and tagged every morning. A competent person must do this inspection and must be present at all times. If something is wrong, it must be red tagged. In the event of a fall, employers must provide for prompt rescue or assure that employees are able to rescue themselves. Don't assume the fire department will be available and/or equipped to help. While working on site, you will encounter many kinds of elevated work platforms. A trained person must be present and/or working on these platforms or lifts, and yearly inspections must be done in addition to the daily inspection. Be sure to note that inspection in the daily log.
The number 2 killer in the big 4 is struck by objects. The number 2 refers to a workplace injury where a worker is hit by a moving object, like falling debris, swinging tools, or a vehicle. One common injury occurs when objects are ejected from machinery. Proper safety gear can protect from these injuries. Safety nets and barricades around hazard areas can also prevent falling objects from harming those below. Materials being lifted to or stored on an elevated platform must be secured, and guidelines must be followed, such as a 1-to-1 ratio, where the materials must be pushed as far back as it is tall. The stack cannot be higher than the railing on the platform. Struck by object also covers being hit by vehicles. There are many various types of equipment on site that are used to move material, such as pettibones, forklifts, cranes, and others. The first thing to know about these vehicles is that if you are not trained, you are not allowed to use them. If you are trained, you need to know the load chart for that piece of equipment and for any attachment that is on it. The load chart must be in view and readable during operation. 90% of fatalities involving cranes are due to rigging. All rigging must be done by a trained rigger who can assure that all connections between the equipment, the hoist, the trolley hook, and the load are correct. Appropriate ropes, slings, chains, and synthetic webbing are selected to match the task at hand, and the rigger makes sure there is suitable protection of rigging when in use. For example, when there are sharp corners. The rigger also does daily inspections of all slings.
The number 3 killer in the big 4 is electrocution. The leading cause of these accidents is high voltage. When near high voltage lines, identify and assess their location and maintain a safe working distance. When working around an open electrical panel box, there is a danger of arc flash. Arc flash is an electrical explosion that occurs when electrical current jumps from its intended path and passes through the air. Arc flash can cause severe burns, structural damage, and even death. 53% of deaths on a construction site are from low voltage. Although shocks from 110-volt current can be common and survivable, that voltage on the right path through the body can be fatal. Faulty equipment, such as a missing ground on a plug, can lead to electrical shock, as electricity will take the shortest path to the ground, and that path may be through the body. When using extension cords, do not overload and do not chain them together, plugging one into another to expand the distance they can reach. Inspect the cords for any physical damage, and do not use cords with frayed wires, broken plugs, or any other damage. If you are working near power lines, in general, 20 feet can be considered safe. Depending on the voltage, you may be able to get closer. However, you should never be any closer than 10 feet. When working in these areas, you need to have a dedicated spotter who monitors the danger zone to ensure no one is too close. To find the voltage of a power line, find the pole and the pole number and telephone number posted on the pole. You should assume that all power lines are energized and all power lines are uninsulated. It should be assumed that all operators and employees are unknowing and should be informed of power line location. Take steps to prevent encroaching and electrocution. You need to confirm the line is de-energized and grounded, and you must maintain a 20-foot clearance. Contractors are responsible for demarcating boundaries with flags or a similar method. They must also erect and maintain an elevated warning line, barricade, or line of signs 20 feet from the power line. Either a proximity alarm or a dedicated spotter should be used to monitor the danger zone. To review, the clearance minimum is 10 feet, and when working between 10 and 30 feet from power lines, you must assume the NFP-70E requirements discussed on the last 2 slides. Lightning is a regulated hazard. Lightning strikes can severely injure or kill workers. When an electrical storm is near, the rule is 30 minutes, 30 miles. If there is a lightning strike within 30 miles of the site, work must cease for 30 minutes. General precautions include avoiding objects that conduct electricity, such as metal objects, plug-in power tools, telephones, bodies of water, including puddles, pipes, and trees. During an electrical storm, make sure you are not the highest object in the area. Take shelter, cover your ears to protect against noise, and squat down with your feet together and no other part of your body touching the ground to reduce the risk of being struck.
The last of the big four is the caught between. The injuries and fatalities occur when a person is squeezed, crushed, or pinched between two or more objects. Make sure that equipment operators are certified and that those working around them are aware of their surroundings, as operators do not always have a clear line of sight all around them. Make sure equipment is properly loaded to avoid rollovers, and seatbelts and safety restraints are used correctly. Equipment should be properly maintained and not used if safety guards are missing. Do not approach equipment in use if the operator does not know you are there. Improperly protected trenches and excavations are another major cause of caught in or between accidents. Any trench or excavation deeper than 5 foot needs to have protective systems in place, and regulations regarding material placement, egress, shoring, heavy equipment use proximity, soil type, spoil pile placement, and benching must be followed. If the trench or excavation is over 6 feet deep, fall protection must be used. And over 20 foot deep, a professional engineer is required to design the protective system. To summarize, caught between policies at a minimum, spotters are required when equipment is in motion. No one is allowed under a suspended load ever. A locking mechanism must be used during maintenance or cleaning of equipment. All equipment swing areas must be identified and barricaded at all times. After a caught between exposure, such as unguarded parts, rotating equipment, equipment rollovers, equipment maintenance, or equipment tip over or malfunction, a written plan is required. Mandatory prevention programs include training, engineering controls, safety protocols, and PPE. Working in confined spaces such as manholes, crawl spaces, and tanks can present life-threatening hazards such as dangerous atmospheres where explosions, air quality, extreme temperatures, combustions, and arc flash can be deadly. Engulfment hazards like soil, liquids, grains, and line breaks can quickly inundate workers. Certain physical features of the space, like corners, heights, and depths, can cause falls and injuries and impede egress. IDLH condition exposure, like hydrogen fluoride and cadmium gases, oxygen deficiency, animal habitation, and fires are also hazards to note. Confined spaces are defined by whether or not they are large enough for entry. If they have limited or restricted entry that would make rescue challenges, or if the space is not designed for the continuous occupancy. An evaluation must be completed to determine whether a confined space needs to be permitted or not.
Lockout tagout, or LOTO, is a safety procedure that prevents the accidental startup of dangerous equipment during maintenance or repairs. LOTO protects workers from injury or death by controlling hazardous energy. Energy sources can include electrical energy, chemicals, gases, and liquids. The steps to lockout tagout start with preparation, where affected employees are notified of hazards. Next is shutdown. The power source is turned off and the equipment is isolated. Next, lock and tag. Apply a lock and tag to the equipment, identifying the work to be done and the reason for the lockout tagout. After that, verify. Check for stored energy and verify isolation. Now the necessary work can be performed. Last is release. Remove the lock and tag and bring the equipment back online. It's estimated that more than 2.3 million workers in the United States are potentially exposed to dust containing crystalline silica, with nearly 90% of those workers employed in the construction industry. This crystalline silica dust can cause cancer, lung issues, and can affect the kidneys and immune system. OSHA regulation requires employers to limit exposure. The preferred method for reducing exposure to silica dust is through engineering controls, which can include the use of an effective local exhaust or vacuum tool system, wet cutting, and/or isolating the source of the dust. OSHA offers detailed guidance on best practices for silica control. As a worker, it is your right to know about dangers that might be encountered. Hazard communication provides workers with information about potential dangers of chemicals used on a site. A safety data sheet details these hazards, including proper handling, storage, and emergency response procedures for each chemical, ensuring workers can take appropriate precautions when working with them. Identifying the chemical, the hazard it presents, and understanding the exposure controls and personal protection needed are the most relevant items on the safety sheet. It is important to know where these sheets are located. The Hazard Material Global Harmonizing Program refers to the globally harmonized system of classification and labeling of chemicals, or GHS, which is an international standard developed by the United Nations to classify and communicate the hazards of chemicals through labeling and safety data sheets. Quick access to safety data sheets is required. Uniform labeling using standardized pictograms, signal words, hazard and precautionary statements on chemical containers can clearly communicate hazards. Hazard number classifications 1, 2, 3, and 4 determine the specific hazard class and category of a chemical based on its properties. In this section, we will cover tool safety. When using tools, you should be sure to inspect before use, select the right tool for the job, operate the tool according to manufacturer's instructions, utilize the correct PPE, use guards, and make sure when not in use, the tool is maintained regularly. Hot work in construction refers to any activity that generates sparks or open flames, like welding, cutting, grinding, or soldering, and requires strict safety protocols to prevent fires. Before any hot work can be performed, a hot work permit must be filled out by contractor and company personnel must sign off. Spot check inspections should be logged on the back of the form. A trained person must be designated fire watch and should monitor the hot work area for sparks or potential fire ignition during and preferably an hour after the work is complete. If a fire does occur on the job site, you are not permitted to fight the fire without training to do so. If you are trained, you are limited to the use of one fire extinguisher, and then you are done. Controlled access zones are designed to provide added safety for workers in elevated areas of the worksite, and they must be constructed of strong materials such as wood, metal, chain, or rope. These zones must be identified by company name, date, contact person, and the activity or task happening in the zone. The color of caution tape indicates status, red meaning danger, and yellow meaning caution. Flagging safety is an important part of the construction crew. Flaggers ensure that other workers can get the job done by diverting traffic. Follow all rules for flagging and directing traffic on public streets. Wearing a high visibility vest and holding a stop sign is necessary to flag or direct traffic. All flaggers should be trained and documented. PPE, or personal protective equipment, refers to the gear worn by construction workers to mitigate hazards that could cause serious workplace injuries. While PPE is effective, it is secondary to modifying work practice and engineering and administrative controls. When those control modifications are unavailable, PPE must be worn. The goal of industrial ergonomics is to create a comfortable and safe work environment that reduces the risk of injury and strain. Some practices to use including choosing the right tool for the job, refrain from working in awkward positions, limit the same activity and position to 2 hours per day, and ask for help when lifting loads heavier than 50 pounds or any awkward or large material. When available, use equipment specially designed to aid with lifts. Housekeeping and daily cleanup are critical to the overall safety of the job. Poor housekeeping is the #1 cause of slips, trips, and falls. Proper cleanup should be done on an ongoing basis and should include placement of unwanted materials and trash in their appropriate containers.
The Emergency Action Plan outlines specific procedures for working to follow in case of an emergency, including details on evacuation routes, reporting procedures, designated roles, and actions to take depending on the type of incident. The EAP plan ensures everyone knows how to respond safely and efficiently during a crisis on the construction site. Communication during an emergency is key to keeping informed and securing assistance. Make sure you know who to call and where the contact information is located so you are prepared in the event of an emergency. Emergency response plan muster points are identified by the general contractor or the owner as locations to meet during an emergency. Should the muster point be inaccessible, the secondary location is a company vehicle or the foreman's car. Any muster point should be a safe area where all employees on site can gather. You should stay at the muster point until you are instructed to leave. Stay at the muster point and avoid becoming unnecessarily involved. Don't be a hero. Reviewing and identifying high-risk activities can allow for proper preparation before work commences. These tasks include working at the leading edge, working with existing electrical and temporary wiring, and abatement or demolition of existing structures, excavation, and support placement. Equipment operation, deliveries, unloading, hoisting, staging material, and also removing material, superstructure disturbance or erection, and pedestrian and student traffic around the worksite.
Reporting incidents promptly can help to mitigate incidents in the future. Any unplanned event, administration of first aid, hospital visits due to injury, property damage, unsafe practices, or fires should be verbally reported before leaving the site and reported in writing by the Friday Work Hazard Evaluation Review. Superintendents and foremen should report to Human Resources personnel. A weekly or daily hazard evaluation form in construction is a risk assessment that identifies and evaluates potential hazards on a construction site. The goal is to prevent hazards from occurring and to ensure the safety of workers. The form helps to identify hazard, assess risk, develop controls, record findings, and monitor and review the assessments. You are responsible to the company and yourself to work and stay safe. While there are many practices put in place to keep employees safe, your commitment to your own personal safety is the first line of defense. A written accident prevention plan for construction outlines detailed procedures and policies designated to minimize the risk of injuries and accidents on a construction site. These include site-specific safety plans, orientation, work hazard evaluation, weekly toolbox talks, daily employee equipment inspections, and periodical safety inspections. Remember, you have absolute employee stop work authority, which means that any employee has the right to immediately stop working on a task if they believe it presents a serious safety hazard to themselves or others, without fear of repercussion, and they are obligated to report the issue to their supervisor immediately. A daily employee inspection is a routine walkthrough of a construction site to identify potential safety hazards, quality issues, and compliance concerns, and they are required. If a task is unsafe or you believe that it is, stop work and contact your supervisor. After safety orientation, you will be asked to sign an acknowledgement form stating we have reviewed various critical aspects of safety. If there are any areas that you feel need better explained, let your superintendent know. In most cases, we use the 3-strike rule. The first incident, we will simply tell you what you did wrong. The second warning will be a write-up. If the behavior continues, the 3rd strike will result in removal from the job site. In the case of serious infractions where we observe you risking your life or someone else's, you may be immediately removed from the project. We do not tolerate risky behaviors when it comes to safety.
When all is said and done, what is the most important reason to work safe? When your family, friends, and loved ones are counting on you to come home. Making sure our coworkers get home to their families at the end of the day is our top priority. We thank you for reviewing these safety protocols, and we encourage you to remain vigilant and work together to maintain safe working environments.